Welcome back to the Culture Clash. Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to the Culture Clash on the Pryce podcast. Hope you guys can hear me. Thank you for being here. And I just want to say, we got some stuff going on. Some huge stuff going on. I will get you guys know Saturday on the chaos of the week. You guys will definitely hear about that then. But now we're on to the show. So, welcome back to the Pryce podcast. Thanks for everybody being here. I'm Jonathan Pryce, your host, and today we are going to war. Now, not with bullets, but with truth. For the next full hour, give or take, no breaks, no distractions. We're dismantling the most destructive, blood soaked ideology in human history: communism. This isn't some abstract academic debate. Communism isn't a noble idea that was never tried right. That's the biggest cop out in modern intellectual history. Uh, get out of reality. Free card that defenders trot out every single time the bodies pile up. They claim the Soviet Union. They claim the Soviet Union wasn't real communism, and today's collapse in Venezuela or Cuba somehow aren't either. According to them, true communism has never been implemented because it's a perfect, stateless, classless utopia where everyone voluntarily shares. I don't know how you say this. Voluntary, where everyone. How do you say this? Voluntarily shares and harmony reigns somehow. Don't know how, but okay. But here's the brutal truth they refuse to face. Every single attempt to impose communist principles, the abolition of private property, the dictatorship of the proletarians, if I'm not pronouncing that right, excuse me, sorry, central planning of the entire economy, which does not work. Great book on basic economics by Thomas Sowell. Great book. Go ahead and grab that book, read it. Literally, the first chapter explains everything about why central economy will not work. The war on the family and church has ended in tyranny, starvation, and slaughter. Not because the wrong people were in charge, not because of external sabotage or bad luck, but because the ideology itself is rotten at its core. It is built on a fundamental denial of human nature. The reality that individuals respond to incentives, the self-appointed vanguard, inevitably corrupts absolutely. Inevitably. There we go. That's the word. Inevitably corrupts absolutely. Marx and Engels didn't just miscalculate. They designed a system that requires crushing human freedom to function and then promised that freedom would magically appear once the crushing was complete. It's a bait and switch that has fooled generations. This isn't theory gone wrong. It's a murderous cult that has killed over 100 million people, more than all the wars of the 20th century combined. The nuclear, sorry, the number comes from decades of documented research, from the from the engineered famines and purges of the USSR to Mao's great leap forward that wiped out tens of millions, to the systematic extermination in Cambodia and beyond. These weren't unfortunate side effects. They were predictable, logical outcomes of treating people as raw material for social engineering, disposable when they resisted the grand plan. Communism promises utopia and delivers mass graves, gulags, famine, secret police, and total control over every aspect of life. It clashes violently with everything that makes human culture actually thrive. Individual liberty that sparks creativity, the family as the foundational unit of society, faith that gives people meaning beyond the state, innovation born from competition and reward, and private property that secures dignity and independence, and basic human nature itself. Our drive to build, to own, to improve our lot, and pass something better to our children, all destroyed by communism. If you're tired of college kids romanticizing the Che Guevara on our shirts, sorry, romanticizing Che Guevara, sorry, still trying to pronounce these names, Guevara on their shirts, a man who ran extermination squads and bragged about it. Professors, ooh, sorry, professors calling for equity while ignoring the body count, or politicians sliding democratic socialism into every policy as if adding the word democratic magically erases the history of bread lines and torture chambers. Then, then, stay with me now. We're exposing the lies, the body count, the economic suicide, and the stealth evasion of communism thinking into our own backyard. From critical theory in classrooms to identity based division in the boardroom. This is a culture clash, and communism is the ultimate destroyer of culture. It doesn't just fail economically, it annihilates the human spirit, turns turns neighbor against neighbor, and leaves entire nations as hollow shells of what they could have been. Let's tear it apart, piece by poisonous piece. Let's get into it. Now, let's start at the roots. The diseased ideology itself. Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels didn't invent some brilliant new system. They weaponized envy and resentment into pseudo scientific religion. These weren't visionary thinkers uncovering hidden truths about society. Marx was a failed academic, a chronic debater who lived off handouts from Engels, the son of a wealthy factory owner, I ironically benefiting from the very capitalism he sought to destroy. Together, they crafted the Communist Manifesto in 1848, a short, fiery pamphlet that reads more like a declaration of war than serious analysis. In it, they openly called for the abolition of private property, the family, and even religion, which Marx dismissed as the opium of the people, a drug that a drug to keep masses docile while the elites, ironically including himself, just saying, plotted their takeover. Their entire worldview rested on class struggle. The idea that all human history is nothing but a brutal zero-sum battle between oppressors and oppressed. Bourgeoisie versus proletariat. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing these wrong. It's wild. Wild out here. Capital versus labor. No room for nuance. No acknowledgement of cooperation, trade, or mutual benefit. The only solution? Total violent, reviolent, re, oh, revolution to the seize the means of production and smash the existing order. But here's the first fatal flaw. And it's fatal because it dooms the entire project from the drawing board. Marx completely misunderstood human nature. He viewed people as blank slates, malleable clay that could be reshaped by the right economic conditions. Once once the I'm gonna botch this again, so sorry. Borgiese, if I'm saying that even right, let me put this thing on. Borgiese was unlimited and private property abolished. He believed altruism would bloom and everyone would happily labor for the collective good. What utter nonsense. Even just thinking about it. When you look at human psyche and everything that's going around with it, sorry, no, nah. Doing labor for the utter good of human nature, sorry. For the collective good, no. Sorry, not gonna happen. That's definitely not going to happen. He ignored inconveniences. He ignored ambition. He ignored the fundamental truth that human beings are not selfless ants in a hive. We are individuals with dreams, families to provide for, and a natural desire to improve our own circumstances and those of our children. He ignored the fact without private property and the possibility of profit, no one has sorry, no one has any real reason to innovate, to take risks, to work harder than the bare minimum, or even to show up consistently. Why innovate a better plow if you can't keep the extra harvest? Why? Why build a factory if the state can seize it tomorrow? Why stay late at the office when your reward is the same stale bread ration as the guy who barely tries? The result? A system that treats individuals as interchangeable cogs in the state machine, stripped of dignity, stripped of purpose, and reduced to servants of the collective. This isn't liberation, it's dehumanization, dressed up as progress. Marx also promised the state would wither away after the revolution. Once the classless society emerged, that was the biggest, most dishonest lie of all. A fairy tale to sell the snake oil. Every single time communism has been tried, the state didn't wither. It metastabilized to its totalitarian nightmare that controlled every aspect of life. What you could say, when you could move, what you could think, even what you could grow in your own garden. That wasn't a mistake or an unfortunate deviation. This was the inevitable result of concentrating absolute power in the hands of a vanguard party, a self appointed elite that claimed to speak for the people while murdering, imprisoning, or starving anyone who dared to disagree. Power doesn't wither when you hand it to the ideologues who believe that alone who believe they alone possess the scientific truth about history. It corrupts, It expands and it devours everything in its path, including the very workers it claimed to liberate. The deeper tragedy is that this wasn't just bad economics or flawed sociology, it was a spiritual sickness, a rejection of the Judeo Christian understanding of fallen human nature that requires checks on power, and a replacement with utopian hubris that always ends in hell on earth. Now let's look at the historical record. The real world the real world laboratory where this ideology was tested again and again, always with the same catastrophic results. Not in some isolated experiment, but across continents, cultures, decades, and leaders who all swore they were doing it the right way this time. Spoiler alert, the results were identical because the poison was the formula itself. Let's start with the Soviet Union, the world's first full scale communist state. Lenin seized powers in 1917, promising bread, peace, and land to the peasants. What did the people actually get? The Red Terror, a deliberate campaign of mass executions, torture, and hostage taking run by the Cheka Service Secret Police. Secret Police. Tens of thousands shot in the first few years alone. Then came more communism, forced gain or forced gain requisitions, nationalization of everything, and engineered famines that killed millions more during the Russian Civil War. By the time Stalin took over, the blueprint was set. His Holodomor in Ukraine alone killed between three and a half and will kill between 3.5 and 5 million people in 1932 to 1933 in 1 year, deliberately starved because they resisted collectivization. Farmers who had worked the land for generations were labeled kulaks, class enemies, and liquidated. Stalin's regime seized every last kernel of grain, every seed grain, and when children died swollen bellied in the streets, and desperate mothers resorted to cannibalism, entire villages wiped out. The New York Times, Walter Dewdrey, won a Pulverizer for lying through his teeth and calling it a hoax. It wasn't mismanagement, it was policy. Stalin himself said the liquidation of the kulaks was necessary to break back the resistance. That is communism in action when reality doesn't match the theory. Murder the reality. Move east to Mao's China. The great leap forward is what they say. Mao's insane ideology driven attempt at instant industrialization and collectivism caused the single largest famine in recorded history. Estimates from historians like Frank de Cotta using internal Chinese archives range from 20 to 45 million dead between 1958 and 1962 in just 4 years. 20 to 45 million. We could average it out to about 28, 29 million, but it's still a lot of people in just 4 years. Come on. Why? Backyard steel furnaces that produced worthless slag while peasants melted down their tools and pots. The Four Pest campaign killed millions of sparrows, triggering ecological collapse and locust swarms that devoured crops. Communes were ordered to report fantasy harvest numbers. The state took the grain away. People ate bark, dirt, leather, and in documented cases across provinces, their own children. They came to the Cultural Revolution, Mao's purge of counter revolutionaries, another 2 to 3 million slaughtered, tens of millions more tortured in public. Struggle sessions, families destroyed, temples razed, books burned, an entire generation's culture erased. Teachers beaten to death by their own students, doctors executed for being bourgeois, all because Mao feared losing power and needed perpetual revolution to keep the ideology pure. Cambodia under Pol Pot and the Khmer Rouge took it even further into pure evil. In just 4 years, 1975 to 1979, they killed 1.5 to 2 million people, 20 to 25% of the entire population in 4 years. Killed off almost a quarter of the entire population. They emptied cities at gunpoint, marched millions into the countryside, and turned the country into a giant death camp called Demotic Kampuchea, however you say it. It's not good whatsoever. They executed anyone who wore glasses because that meant you could read and might think. Anyone with soft hands, anyone who spoke a foreign language, even people who cried out at executions. Children were recruited as executioners because they were uncontaminated, all in the name of Year Zero. Wiping the slate clean for pure communism. No mercy, no markets, no families, no past. Just the party and the killing fields. Can't even pronounce right. Cuba under Castro, North Korea under the Kims, Eastern Europe behind the Iron Curtain, Ethiopia under Mengitu's Red Terror. The pattern is identical. Execution quotas, famines used as weapons, secret police everywhere. Venezuela is the most recent case study. A country sitting on the world's largest proven oil reserves, once the richest in Latin America. Under Chavez and then Maduro's 21st century socialism, it was reduced to socialist ruin. Hyperinflation peaked at over 130,000%. GDP collapsed more than 75%. Millions fled on foot, carrying what they had left. People ate zoo animals, stray dogs, and garbage while party elites lived like kings in fortified compounds. Hospitals ran out of medicine. Blackouts lasted days. Once prosperous cities became war zones. That wasn't bad luck. This wasn't sanctions or external interference. This was communism, doing exactly what it always does when given the chance. Destroy incentives, punish productivity, concentrate power, and turn abundance into mass suffering. Every single one of these horrors was sold as the march toward utopia. Every single time. The defenders later said that wasn't real communism. But the body count, the gulags, the famines, and the secret police were not bugs. They were the inevitable features of a system that treats human beings as expendable raw material for the collective dream. The historical record isn't debatable. It is a mountain of corpses proving the ideology is incompatible with human life. Economically, communism is impossible on its face, not effective, not needs better management, not bad luck with the leaders. Literally impossible. Ludwig von Mises provided a century in his groundbreaking 1920 essay, Economic Calculation in the Socialist Commonwealth. Here's the core problem, stripped bare. Without private property and genuine free market prices, there is no rational way to allocate scarce resources across an entire economy. Also mentioned in basic economics. You guys should really check out that book and read it. In the capitalist system, prices emerge from millions of voluntary exchanges. They single relative scarcity, consumer preferences, and opportunity costs in real time. A factory owner can look at the price of steel, labor, electricity, and machinery and calculate whether turning these inputs into cars, tractors, or smartphones creates more value than the alternatives. Entrepreneurs risk their own capital, respond to profit and loss, and constantly adjust. That's how innovation explodes and resources flow to where they're most needed. Under communism, central planners in central planners issue decrees from the top. They have no private ownership of the means of production, so no real market prices for capital goods. They can count physical units, tons of steels, hours of labor, but they have zero idea of what anything is actually worth or what people truly need or what or want at any given point. Should this steel go to tractors or tanks, to housing or railways? Do you compare the value of a new bridge versus better shoes or medicine without price signals, reflecting subjective human valuations? Planners are just flying blind and they truly cannot see. They guess. They prioritize ideology over reality. And the result is chronic shortages of everything people actually desire and massive surpluses of useless junk. Black markets everywhere. And it's a waste on civilization. It's a waste on a civilization and ending scale. Mrs., whatever you call it, Mises, nailed it. Socialism doesn't produce, just socialism just doesn't just produce less. It cannot perform economic calculation at all. It's an economy in the true sense. It's command and control pretending to be one. Frederick Hayek later expanded this, showing, and I mean showing, everything. Anyway, showing how dispersed knowledge, the unique local information held by millions of individuals, can never be centralized in a planning board. The Soviet Union tried 5 years plans for decades. They built factories, moved mountains, and still couldn't put decent shoes or toilet paper on shelves consistently. Capitalism, by contrast, turns self interest into the greatest engine of human prosperity ever devised. It channels greed, ambition, and desire to provide for one's family into serving others through voluntary exchange. Look at the stark, natural experiments that prove it beyond debate. Take Germany after World War II. Same people, same language, same culture, same starting ruins. West Germany embraced markets, private property, and limited government under the social market economy. And by 1989, its GDP per capita had soared, living standards skyrocketed, and it became an economic powerhouse. East Germany, on the other hand, under full communist central planning, stagnated. The gap was enormous. West Germans enjoyed cars, consumer goods, travel, and freedom, while East Germans faced shortages, trab- trabant cars that fell apart, and a secret police state. When the wall fell, the contrast was undeniable. The contrast, was undeniable. Or look at Korea. Same people, same peninsula, same starting point after the Korean War. South Korea chose markets, trade, and capitalism. Today, its GDP per capita exceeds 36,000. A high-tech, innovative economy producing world-class cars, electronics, and culture. North Korea chose communism and Juche, however you call it, however you pronounce it. Its people live in one of the most poorest, most repressive societies on earth, while GDP per capita estimates around 600 to $1,300 at best. Famine, prison camps, and hereditary dictatorship versus Samsung, Hyundai, and K-pop. Which do you think is better? Honestly, South Korea. Anywho, the data is not debatable. Identical genetics and history, opposite systems, night and day outcomes. But the damage isn't just economic. Communism wages total war on the human soul itself. It destroys the family by making the state the ultimate parent. Children indoctrinated in schools, parents encouraged to inform each other. Loyalty to the party demanded above blood ties. It crushes faith because any higher loyalty threatens the party's total claim on the individual. Marx called religion the opium of the people. Lies. Lenin and Stalin turned that into active persecution. Churches closed or turned into museums of atheism. Priests executed or sent to gulags. Believers harassed. In Albania, they even declared wars, the world's first fully atheist state of law. It punishes excellence and rewards mediocrity. I can't pronounce, can't say anything. Mediocrity. The ambitious workers get the same ration as the lazy one. So why strive? It turns neighbors into informants. In the Soviet Union and Eastern Bloc, the secret police cultivated a culture of betrayal when trusting anyone outside your immediate family became dangerous. And 70 years of rule. The very idea of generalized social trust had been eradicated. Studies today still show lower interpersonal trust in post communist societies, a lingering scar, especially after 70 years of rule. The very idea of generalized social trust had been eradicated. People survived by lying to authorities, stealing from the state to feed their families, and keeping their heads down. That's not progress, that's civilizational suicide. It hollows out it hollows out the virtues that sustain free societies honestly, innovative, responsibility, and genuine community. Communism doesn't just fail to deliver bread. It wraps the human spirit into something unrecognizable, leaving broken families, shattering faiths, and societies where fear replaces hope. And don't think this is ancient history. The same poisonous ideas have mutated and re entered the rest through what we call cultural Marxism. I'll be going deep, doing a deep dive on that next week, so stay tuned. The economic version failed spectacularly in preposterous nations because people could see the bread lines and the gulags with their own eyes. So the intellectuals adapted. The Frankfurt School, a group of Marxist thinkers, including Max Hockenheimer, Theodor Adorno, and Hubert Marcuse, realized that classical Marxism couldn't take root where workers were becoming middle class and enjoying the fruits of capitalism. They shifted the battlefield from the factory floor to the realm of culture, education, media, and the human mind itself. What I call the left. Drawing, oh no, for some reason that, okay. Drawing on Antonio Gramsci's concept of cultural hegemony, the understood they understood that to win power, you first had to capture the institutions that shaped how people think and what they value. Oh man, sounds really familiar right now. I don't know. I don't know. Let me guys know. What do you guys think? Does that sound familiar? I think it does. Oppressor versus oppressed didn't disappear. It simply changed uniforms. Class struggle became race, gender, sexuality, and every other identity category. The proletariat was replaced by a coalition of the marginalized. The goal remained the same: undermine the existing order, demoralize demoralize the successful, and pave the way for greater centralized control. Critical race theory, DEI mandates, and the entire grievance industrial complex are straight out of the communist playbook. They're just wearing new clothes. CRT, critical race theory, one of the things I despise the most and should not be taught in schools, which emerged from critical legal studies in the 1970s and 80s, okay, doesn't treat racism as individual prejudice that can be overcome through character and law. It's racism as baked into every structure of Western institutions, with whiteness and merit itself framed as tools of oppression. Complete and utter, sorry for my language, bullshit. Complete and utter bullshit. Sorry for my language, but as a Christian, I love people. Don't get me wrong. I love all people. I hate the ideology, which leads to sin. Anywho, equity isn't equality of opportunity or treatment under the law. It demands engineered equality of outcomes enforced by the state or corporate bureaucracy. DEI initiatives embedded this logic into hiring, promotions, curriculum, and even corporate training, punishing denizens as hate while rewarding ideological conformity. Like I said, complete and utter bullshit. They've captured universities where entire departments now function as a re-education camps. They've infiltrated media, turning news into activism. They've taken root in corporations where HR departments act like political commissioners. Even Hollywood pumps out endless content, framing Western civilization as uniquely evil, traditional heroes as problematic, and every story through the lens of identity based power struggles. Yeah, whew, one of the things I absolutely despise. Absolutely. They teach your kids that America is irredeemably evil at its founding, that objective merit and colorblind standards are racist, that the nuclear family is an oppressive patriarchal institution, and that biological sex is a social construct to be dismantled. Social construct to be dismantled. I'm so pissed off. I am mispronouncing my words. But yes, like I said before, complete and utter bullshit. I don't know how many times I gotta say this. It is bullshit. This is not harmless academic theory floating in ivory towers. It is the same class struggle logic repackaged to divide us, demoralize us, erode our shared culture, and soften us up for more centralized control. Every time you hear equity instead of equality, decolonize instead of uh sorry, decolonize instead of achieve or build or systematic used as a get out of reality free card to explain away personal responsibility and failure. You are hearing direct echoes of the same ideology that filled the mass graves of the 20th century. The methods have evolved from bullets to breadlines to language, institutions, and psychological warfare. But the end game is identical: tear down what works, concentrate power in the hands of the enlightened vanguard, and remake society in the image of the utopian failure. The culture clash isn't coming, it's here, right here at our doorsteps. And it's the latest front in communism's long war on human flourishing. So, where does that leave us? Communism is not just wrong, It is the single greatest moral and practical failure in human history. It has been tried, tested, and refuted in blood and starvation more times than any other systems. The only honest conclusion is that it must be rejected utterly in every form forever. Forever. Until the end of time. We must defend the alternative that actually works. Individual liberty, free markets, limited government, strong families, and unapologetic Western culture. That is the system that has lifted billions, and that's with a B, billions out of poverty, that produced the richest, freest, most innovative civilization the world has ever seen. And that is what we fight for here on the Pryce podcast. So don't forget to hit that like button, share this video with the communist that needs to see the truth and hear it. And don't forget to hit subscribe for more of this content. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think. But yeah, communism is absolute garbage. 100%. I would just say it's absolute garbage. It went from socialism to communism and then to Marxism. I'll be doing a deep dive on Marxism next week, so don't forget. Right here on the Pryce podcast. But yeah. Thank you all for being here. It's been an hour, okay? Almost an hour. It's been almost an hour. Share this episode with everyone that you know. Arm yourself with facts. Fact check me. I want you guys to actually go out there. Fact check me. Use AI, but fact check the AI. Check the sources. Do all of that. And really arm yourselves with truth. The culture clash is real, and the stakes are nothing less than the future of human freedom. Thank you for being here on this culture class on the Pryce podcast. I'm Jonathan Pryce. Follow me on X at Jonathan Pryce1. And I will be having a new website up soon. But I'll see you guys on the next one. Next week, we will be going over Marxism. So stay tuned. Stay with us. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.